Every legal tech founder I speak to thinks Harvey and Legora are the companies to beat. But my guest today doesn't. He thinks the real competitor is ChatGPT and Anthropic, and he's giving away free what every other legal AI company charges thousands for. No sales team, no demos, $20 a month. He told me which marketing channel he spent real money on and watched fail. He told me the one hire every legal tech founder should be making right now and why most are still hiring for the last error. And when I asked him the question every founder is wrestling with, are we all just rappers waiting to be killed by the next model? He gave me an answer I'm still thinking about. This is Nick Holzherr, founder of GitLaw. This is taking legal tech to market. Let's go. Nick, most legal tech AI companies sell up the stack to law firms, so your Harveys, Legoras, Spellbooks. You sideways to businesses directly. So why and how does that actually play out in the funnel?
Mainly because we have a different mission to, I think, pretty much everyone in the legal tech space. Our mission is to help small businesses. That comes from a personal problem. I spent millions of pounds, dollars, building businesses, buying them just on legal fees. So loads of money on legal fees. It wasn't just the cost, it was the time it took. Super frustrating waiting 2 weeks when you want to get a deal over the line. And now suddenly you have to wait for a lawyer to find the right slot in their calendar. Totally understandable, but from a client perspective, challenging. And often it's very black box, you're not quite sure where things go. So there's real pain in using lawyers to do stuff. There's also huge value. I don't want to sidestep that. There's lots of value, and I'm sure we'll get to that as well. But for me, the pain was as a customer, as a business, using, spending huge amounts of money and using lots of lawyers throughout the various parts of my journey. Selling Whisk to Samsung was very expensive. Buying a business into Whisk before I sold it was expensive. But also just scaling and building businesses generally is you spend a lot of money. So we have a different mission. And I think AI and technology has the opportunity to save businesses substantial amounts of money, because I think 80-90% of what you spend in a legal bill is essentially money you're spending on overhead that lawyers have in providing you their advice. And AI makes that overhead free. But lawyers are set up in a structure that makes it very hard for them to pass on those savings to the customer. Like if imagine a law firm partner saying, yeah, we will from 2027 onwards charge people 80% less for the work we do. Like I can't imagine that many people are going to make that decision, right? So huge opportunity, big pain, different mission, totally different customer base, different customer expectations. Our competitor is not Harvey, Legora, or those players. It is Claude, ChatGPT. They are the alternatives that our customers are thinking about. Our customers are already in Claude and in ChatGPT. So it's natural for them to start the conversation there. So that's really we have to convince customers we're better than them. Our customers have no idea that Harvey and Legora exist, right? They assume that their lawyers are going to use those tools, but as in use AI, but they probably wouldn't be able to name those the names.
Let's dive into that, because of course there's been plenty in the last month or so around Anthropic and their official kind of walking to the ring in terms of getting into legal tech. How do you position GitLaw against someone just going into ChatGPT and doing a bit of DIY?
I mean, I think you can do DIY for a lot of things. The problem with AI today, and it will improve, but by how much we'll see. The problem is, with every turn, AI gets 10 to 15% wrong, right? If you go to vanilla ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, and you notice it, if you know an area really well, recruitment or product management or marketing, and you ask it to do a job for you, and it comes back, you can kind of pick up the errors and the issues. And if you keep doing more and more edits with AI, every revision, there's more small errors that come into your work, and it kind of compounds. And if you do it over many, many loops, you're then making your document was 10% wrong, and then it was 15% wrong, and then it was 20% wrong, and suddenly you're 50% wrong. And that's a bit of an extreme. It doesn't get to 50% because the AI is quite good at self-correcting. But you've always got mistakes in there. And most of our customers are not lawyers, so they they don't pick up those issues. They look at it and go, yeah, that looks like a legal document, submit, right? And then the problem is you don't really test a legal document until something goes wrong. And then usually the test is you're in court, or you have human lawyers review it and go, what on earth did you agree to? So what our goal is produce something better than ChatGPT and Claude, and produce it in a better, more easy to understand way. So with changes and comments and all that kind of stuff, and working in documents. And the way we do that is we have templates. So everything's based on tried and human reviewed templates. So if it's drafting something, it's not drafting it from scratch and kind of where there is risk of hallucination in there. It's using a standard form. And then lots of different kind of rules and checks and processes and context that we load in certain different ways, use different models, orchestrate different models. And that's basically how we get a better result. And we don't charge that much for it, right? And we have a free plan, and the majority of our users use it for free. And then for some people, when they start to use it, they realize they want more of it, and they pay us $20 a month for that, which is significantly less than you'd pay a law firm. Now, some of our customers also use us to kind of build the first version, ask all the right questions, and then go and invite a lawyer into the platform who then does the advice bit. And actually, for a big deal, an M&A deal or something like that, or investment closing, I would recommend people should get a lawyer on board, because the advice is really, really valuable. And I've benefited lots from smart lawyers helping me in the process. So this is not anti-lawyer at all. It is a little bit anti-law firm business model of the past. So, and I guess I don't trust that lawyers will change their business model fast enough with the technology, which is why we think we have something, an important role to play.
I want to get into the go-to-market piece, but just on the product side for a second more. 5 years time, do you think we still need that human involvement of that lawyer coming in and giving their advice as well? Do you think there's always a place for that, or do you think it's just because we're still at this dawn of where we're going?
That's a really, really hard question to answer, because it doesn't just affect lawyers; it affects everybody. It affects you and me, and will I have a role to play in 5 years? And if you read last year, there's the big piece called AI 2027, and talked about the fact that these models, when they get to a certain tipping point, the models will start to train the models, and then they start to become exponentially better at a faster trajectory than we've seen to date. And you see some of the news stories coming out of, Claude apparently has a secret model that is smarter than they can't release yet because it's so powerful. Who knows what exactly what's coming around the corner? So I don't know. There is definitely a world where no humans are needed for, I guess, knowledge work. And that's really scary for everybody. That's not lawyer specific. That's just humans. And I genuinely am scared about that for myself and my kids. I have young kids, 1 and 4 years old. So what does the future look like? I'm also very excited about the future where computer software could do so much for us. Like, that's potentially an amazing future, but also potentially a really weird, unknown, and therefore scary kind of future. In terms of will we need lawyers, I think for the foreseeable future on important, there will be a place, an important place for lawyers to give you advice. So take an example where you're selling your company that you've built for 10 years or however long to somebody else, and you're just about to go into negotiation with another human for that sale, right? Now, would you want someone in the room with you that has sat through 1,000 negotiations like that, understands all the terms really, really well? Of course you would. Would you be willing to pay for that person like more than you do today? I think so. Especially if 80% of the work is being done automated with AI, would you be happy to kind of reserve a good chunk for that person, which per hour is more than they're getting paid today? I think so. I would, right? And I've sat through those negotiations, and I've received the advice of really smart, experienced people, and it is really valuable, right? Just like the question is, it's more of a macro question, I think, which, do you think you will still appreciate human advice in the future? And I think the answer is yes. So I don't think there is the law profession is no longer needed. I just think that if you look at what actually happens in most deals, and I've done a lot of these myself, it's a lot of the stuff that lawyers are doing is it's admin. It's onboarding people. It's asking them basic questions about the contract. It's going back and forth between the two different parties and getting both people to agree which kind of position they're in. It's not really advice, and like doesn't really. It used to require lawyers, and what used to happen was, and still does in most cases, is you get charged for a senior partner law firm rate, hundreds of pounds an hour, sometimes thousands, often thousands, especially in the US. But you actually get a paralegal or like a junior lawyer on the case and they're getting paid, between 50 and 100K per year. Some of them less, some of them 30 or 20K a year. But they're getting charged out at like 200 to 500K a year, or sometimes even more, depending on which law firm you're at. So like massive discrepancy between like, A, the work doesn't need to be done anymore by humans because it can be automated. And secondly, there was a huge markup on that person's time. And it's basically a pyramid. And these law firms are in this pyramid where the partner benefits from all the people below working at a really ratcheted rate compared to what they are earning themselves. And that's, what does that pay for? There's lots of things that pays for. There's lots of stats around, number of hours that are actually like utilized by lawyers. And there's different numbers on that. And some of them are quite shocking in terms of how low, right? And some of them are quite shocking in terms of how many hours the juniors have to work in order to earn their wage. If you're at a Magic Circle firm in London, I'm not sure what the latest numbers are, but they were like crazy hours you have to work. And some of them sleeping in their office and stuff. So it's such an interesting business model, right? And it worked so well. And I think AI is going to disrupt it heavily, just like it has done in software engineering and design and product management and all of those already. It's just coming to other places now. So yeah, I think the world is changing. Some of it for the better. Some of it is scary. Some of it I find scary, especially if you've got kids or you're relatively young. You're not kind of retiring yet. Even if you're retiring, it's scary. If your pension, if you're a lawyer and your pension is in the law firm pension scheme, like I think it's also scary because you're just like, is that a sustainable business model? And I've spoken to, by the way, I've had multiple very senior lawyers reach out in the past, year and a half since I've talked about this area, going, "Hey Nick, what do you think is going to happen? Because I'm worried about my pension in the firm," right? It's like these are confidential conversations; these are not public, right? But like there is this, people are seeing it, right? They don't talk about it publicly because it doesn't help their narrative, but across the business, people are seeing this. And of course there are deniers, and maybe they're right. But I would say the majority of opinion is that this is going to be, we're going into this whole new area.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's very interesting to see how it will play out. But let's talk about the, I guess, bit more on the go-to-market side. So you mentioned about the templates earlier on, and my understanding is you've made the core product free, which I think you kind of clarified that earlier on, the e-sign free. What does qualified pipeline look like for you when there's no salesperson and no kind of demo gate?
Yeah, qualified pipeline is essentially, we look at different things. With sign-ups we care about, obviously, how many people come into the front door. But then there is activation, which basically means they use the product. And what we find is people who use the product generally will find enough value to upgrade, right? So who really use it, because they'll start to see the value. They'll be like, wow, this product really works. And then they start to then they basically pay us, and they pay us $20 a month. And then what we typically see is a good percentage of people who pay us $20 start putting lots of agreements through and do lots of iterations on those, right, with their counterparties or whatever. And then they ask us, can I spend more? And it's actually quite hard in our platform to pay more than $20, but we have built some options because we keep getting people asking us, can I please buy more of it? But so the problem for us is not, once you use it, you generally have a good experience. The problem for us is getting you to try it in the first place. So not the sign up, that sign up's relatively easy too. I guess it's that qualified pipeline to conversion for us it's not, we don't track we do track. It's not a key metric for us of are we converting you to paid? Because we kind of the product will figure that out if the product's good enough, which we think it's getting better every day, but I think it is pretty good. The problem for us is getting you to actually use the product and get over that hump from I'm used to using ChatGPT or Claude, or I'll just go to my lawyer for this one because it's the way I've done it in the past. That change of behavior, that's the challenge in go-to-market for us. And then once you're in it, there's lots of things that kind of start to grow the product, because we have, as you say, free e-signs. You don't have to use DocuSign or whatever. And every time you send someone to eSign, then they have the opportunity to hear about GitLaw as well. Or you can share a document to collaborate with your team on the platform, so they can also edit the document with you. Or the counterparty can also edit it and they get like a separate instance of the AI where they can kind of collaborate. Again, it's an invite opportunity, right? So you basically have all these like referral opportunities where other people find out about it. That's how DocuSign grew. That's how Dropbox grew. And that's how Calendly and Loom and all of these high growth kind of like tech companies, they basically went through referral. One person uses it. The whole point of the product is you send it to somebody else, kind of. And so this parts of that are working in GitLaw too. So that's like a key part of the growth model. And then the rest of it is relatively vanilla. It's just, pay Google some money and they bring some customers and it works, right? You just click a button and people arrive. But it's everything else that the big hard part is activation. Get someone, signing up is relatively easy. Then get them to actually really use it for a real use case. And then secondly, get them to invite somebody else once they've done that. That's less hard, but that's also a key goal for us.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there a point where GitLaw has a sales team, or is it all going to be done with these channels, do you think?
I mean, we have a customer support team today. I don't foresee the sales team part at the moment, but the trodden path, very validated trodden path by pretty much every company, is that they end up getting a sales team and they get large organizations on board, right? So we will. It's very likely that we will have a sales team at some point. Today, I have zero plans. I don't, we don't do sales meetings. We don't do demos. It's all self-serve, right? You just come onto the platform. It's free to sign up. There's no barriers. You get the full product. There's no you don't have to wait to see anything. So no, today we don't have a sales team. But yeah, most Calendly and Loom and all those, everyone has sales teams nowadays. Where once you get to larger teams using it, then larger organizations generally want to speak to someone, and they're generally willing to pay the price to do it. As in they pay more money to justify the salesperson. But today, the pricing point that you pay us is so low that we don't charge you for the privilege of speaking to a human salesperson. You pay so little because it's self-serve, essentially. And I think it's mostly self-explanatory what we're doing, right? And we do have humans you can talk to if there's a problem.
Okay, and I don't know about you. I've been on the AI train since the mainstream opening of ChatGPT. I've been utilizing it in lots of different ways. One thing I always feel is there's someone out there doing this better than me, and they're being more productive than me because they're doing things I don't know about. And so I'm always really interested to find out how people are using agents, automation, AI. And I guess in terms of your own go-to-market operations, what does that look like? What's running inside GitLaw's go-to-market right now that might be really interesting to people?
Well, it's mainly using agents to speed up everything that we do, right? So, have you tried OpenClaw before?
I've not yet. No, I've heard a lot about it. I've not used it myself.
Yeah, so I tried it. I don't use it, but I've tried it, and it's we've basically built in-house things that are similar to it, right? And there's lots of variants of it, but essentially it's AI agents you can talk to in channels that you are already in. So Slack, for example, we have like an agent in Slack that knows everything about our specs, all of our product specs, all of our projects ongoing, all of the people in the business, basically all context. We try and give it all the context. We've even restructured all of our data. So we used to have everything in Amplitude, right? Still going via some other platforms, but into Amplitude. And now we replicate data in our own data warehouses so that the AI agent is able to understand it better. So everything we basically in the business, we try and structure so that the agent can access it. And then that means that you can speak to the agent and, it's got skills and all the things you expect, but basically as in skills and specific modules, if you like. People are not familiar with skills, might not know what skills are, but agents that specialize on a specific thing. There's lots of those, but we also have an orchestrator, kind of a main agent that's able to kind of reference them for you. So you don't have to know that those exist. You can just talk to one main agent and it will just figure it out. But you can ask it anything. You can ask it hey, review my SEO and figure out what I need to change. And it will go here's what you should change. It will go off and research for half an hour and come back and say, I've researched everything. I've done all the, calls. I've gone into all these different SEO tools. I've logged in. I've grabbed all the stuff. I've looked at the keyword recent things. I've looked at the competitor keywords. And by the way, this is what the strategy should be. Do you want me to execute it? Yes. And it goes, okay, done. Right. So it's not quite as simple as that, but it's not that far off that. And that basically applies to everything. It applies to, designing a new flow, to building the software, to you testing it, to writing marketing materials for it, to creating ads, to looking at the analytics, to running user tests. It's all, even human user tests. Like we have a platform where you can upload the questions, and in fact, where AI creates the questions for the user test, and then AI sends it to humans, as in via a platform. We pay humans to do the user tests. And then the human stuff comes back in again, and the AI analyzes it and tells us what happened. And we do still go in and actually check what a real human still watches the real human, right? Because you do get different, humans are still good at certain things, that are better than AI at certain things. But, we still have like 15 people in the team, 15, 20 people in the team. So we have humans, and they're really valuable, and we really appreciate them, but they can do the work of 100. Or maybe of more than 100 because of AI. And because when you get to above 50 people, or I'm not sure what the magic number is, but 50 people, everything slows down because the communication overhead starts to become a real bottleneck, where you're like, oh, well, I'm working on this part of marketing, but I need to connect with all the other teams in marketing just to check that my stuff is not overlapping or that we're aligned or whatever, right? And it slows everything down in the business. And I've experienced this multiple times as I've scaled other businesses. So by having like less people using agents, you don't have that like kind of collaboration overhead. And you're kind of seeing more and more people in the space talk about the fact that collaboration sucks. It's really annoying to collaborate with other humans because it takes so much time. You have to do so much overhead on aligning. But we have less people doing each task with agents doing it for you, then actually you can move much, much faster as a whole organization. So the core to how we work in pretty much everything is using AI and using agents, but it's still humans that are ultimately directing it. And we do still, I think we have like 9 or 10 roles open. We're still hiring too. So it's not that like, it's not humans, are being replaced by AI. It's just that you can do so much more with less people, and therefore the number of people that you need to run go-to-market, but also everything else in the business is much, much less.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That resonates. And I see that across the board in terms of there's still a lot of hiring happening. There's still a lot of demand for top people, but businesses, one person can do the same as 3 people. That's where we're kind of at, I think, with agents and AI. But I think one of the other things we were talking about when we caught up before was the wrapper question. And I think this is important for maybe businesses who are already kind of established, but it's also worth in terms of understanding where they sit in the market, but also for maybe someone who's thinking about setting up a legal tech business. But every founder I speak to is asking the same thing. Am I building a moat, or am I building a wrapper on top of AI that gets killed when the model gets one version better? So where does GitLaw generally sit on this? And what's the honest answer for the legal tech founders who don't have your open source community or your template library? What's your kind of take on this? Because I know it was something you were quite, passionate about.
Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting question, right? Because AI makes it possible to build almost everything, anything. I could point, and people do this all the time, that they point the AI at a competitor, at Harvey, and hey, copy Harvey for me, and make the site look just like it, and call it a different thing, and make sure it doesn't patent infringe, or like trademark infringe, and make all the research all the forums about exactly how each feature in Harvey works, and copy it, and create a copy for me. Go. And then like 20 minutes later, here it is. And it actually looks pretty good, right? So the question obviously is, well, okay, in that world, which exists already, but we're rapidly accelerating into as well, where you can do that, it becomes much easier to do that for almost every single thing, right? So you could basically clone things so quickly and so easily. Where does the true value sit? And clearly there's lots of value in the LLMs, and therefore people talk about that everything else on top of LLMs is a wrapper. And I think it's a really interesting question, because I spend a lot of time thinking about it because it's so core to like building software today. Because you're sitting there going, well, whatever I build, whatever I innovate can just be copied for free in 6 months' time with a better AI model. What's the point? Right? Because building costs money, a lot of money. You take venture money and you spend it to build and innovate, right? So like, what's the point in innovating if someone else can copy it so quickly? And I think where I land on this is every business is a wrapper, right? So like, take a coffee company is a wrapper on top of like beans and coffee machine and some real estate, right? Like very, very few businesses are like doing everything end to end. There was there's a really interesting, I think it's sort of, was a comedian or somebody who tried to build, I think it was a kettle or a toaster or something without using any other person to kind of any components or even like plastic or something. And it was like, it ended up being nothing like what he was trying to build. And I think he's an artist actually. The point is every business is a wrapper of some sort. We've been through these different like, kind of like iterations quite a few times in technology. This one's bigger than ever before. But if you look at like servers, you used to have like a computer in your office to host your website, and then Amazon came along and made it all, and others came along with Rackspace came along and basically allowed you to host everything on someone else's server. And that was like a huge, huge change because it was so much easier suddenly to go and build web services and you didn't have to host all the infrastructure. This is a little bit similar to that. I think everyone's a wrapper. It's not about you shouldn't be scared of being a wrapper because I think almost every single business in the world is a wrapper on top of some stuff. The question is, are you good AI wrapper? Are you a bad AI wrapper, which is just like a very thin model, a very thin like chat box on top of the AI models where there's not much difference? Or are you adding value on top of the models? And is it sustainable value or will it be replaced very, very quickly? And the sustainable bit matters for you because, are you spending lots of money building something that will vanish soon? Or are you building something that's lots of value right now, but actually that will go away? It's not going to be there for a long time. So good AI wrappers have a few things. I think it's context. Are you able to, like, a lot of value lives in being able to collect user context and feed it into the raw AI model at the right time and the right bits of it. There's also a lot of like garden tending. So like, when you've built something, do you just leave it alone? Or like, do you actually keep iterating and improving on it? So if someone joins your thing, does it get continually better and you're kind of like continually improving it? That's what good, I think, also happens. I think there's also a lot of taste involved in it. So like, a good, are you putting your own kind of spin and opinion around how the work should be done on top of the core AI models? Because the core AI models are really good at like computing decisions and the intelligence part, but actually they're much better if you have like an opinionated taste on top of it. So there's lots of workflow that you can build on top. There's lots around context. There's lots around taste. There's lots around garden tending, so constantly improving it. And the good AI the companies that are building something that's has endurable value are, I think, building kind of durable components along those pillars. And I do think there is, in most areas, in most software areas, there are lots and lots of business opportunities alongside the core LLMs. But you do have to be deliberate and you do have to think about it carefully. You need to be honest whether what you're building is genuinely has a competitive advantage, is valuable beyond what the core models offer today and will offer in 6 months, because acquiring customers is so expensive and all the customers are, or most of the customers are already on ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT have a massive advantage. Like they just have to make the thing do the thing that you're trying to do. And they're all going in this direction. In legal, Claude did it first, and ChatGPT there's news articles every day at the moment around what ChatGPT is going to do, right? Because I think they had some blog posts or something. I don't know what caused it. The last few days, there's been lots of flurry around what ChatGPT is going to do. So, there's lots of important questions to answer. Definitely don't ignore it. Don't stick your head in the sand. But I think there is a really good, positive like true reason to exist for lots of startups alongside the core foundation models.
Love it. Well, that's very reassuring. Appreciate the take there, the hot take. Let's talk about GitLaw and I guess the next kind of foreseeable future, 12 months, 18 months. What's the trigger that takes GitLaw from 10 people to 25 people?
I think it's probably global expansion. We might have like one person per market or something that is responsible for each different market around the world, maybe. But I don't think we really need that many more people. I do think, from 15 to 25, yes, that will happen. But do I foresee us needing to go to 1,000? I really don't. I think we will be so much of what you need to do, you can now automate essentially. So I think what we will want is people with specialist knowledge in different areas. I can imagine maybe having 100 lawyers at some point in the future responsible for different parts of law across our platform, who can go improve the core platform for their specific areas. So maybe we'll get but they wouldn't. It'd be kind of a core team. I want to keep a relatively small kind of core team that runs the actual product and business, and then we maybe have specialists that kind of connect into it, and maybe those are full-time employed. They might be full-time employees, but the way we're going to structure the business, I think, will be different in order to not lose the advantages that you get when you're a small business and can move so fast. I've experienced it now multiple times where I've scaled a business and you hit this wall where suddenly everything slows down. And I think in today's world, the cost of slowing down is so high that it's just not worth crossing that chasm. And you don't need to. We'll see. I think we will naturally grow to 25 people, but I don't think we're going to go to thousands. I don't think we need it anymore.
What do you think will be different in 2027 about how LegalTech goes to market?
I think ultimately you're going to see a lot more people drop their prices from what they are today. They may not go to our extreme, which is free essentially, but they may, or $20. But I think there's lots of people who are charging quite hefty fees on top of the foundation models, when the foundation models do a lot of what people are paying for there. And there are some big advantages to using the foundation models directly for lawyers. So if you're using Claude Code as a law firm or something similar, and you host it locally, and you have a zero data retention policy, the data doesn't need to leave your law firm and go into the cloud somewhere. There's pros and cons of that. I think if I was running a law firm, I still would pay a player like Harvey or Legora to do it for me. But I know that lots of lawyers think otherwise to that. I think there's so many options on the table. Models are going to get smarter and smarter. What you can do with the foundation models will get easier and easier. So I think the price will come down. Innovation will continue to expand. If you're looking at what's happening recently with the open source platforms like Mike, it's really interesting to see how quickly people are vibe coding alternatives. Those vibe coding alternatives, I wouldn't run my law firm on them. I think there's, in the same way that I don't run my personal life on OpenClaw or something. There's although that's probably more validated than some of the open source stuff in legal. There are risks of that, right? There's lots of advantages in having a really intelligent, large team who carefully check everything so there's no data breaches, no security issues in it, right? But I think it's such an interesting space, and I think we'll see a lot more of it. And I think we'll see probably some law firms start to contribute to opportunities like Mike OSS and stuff like that. So what you'll see is, I think, many more options, many more free options. The frontier models improving what they offer, make it much easier to access. You'll see majority of law firms will use AI by default. Their prices is going to be such an interesting time. You're going to see some law firms come in at a really low cost, Others will try and stick to the high end stuff. Yeah, a lot of the middle will basically will run out of business. And consumers, as in businesses and individuals, will start to use more AI tools as well, and hopefully, Git will be an important part of that as well.
Absolutely. I'll be rooting for you. Well, just to finish up, Nick, a couple of quick fire questions. Best go-to-market decision in the last 12 months?
I think it's about hiring AI native people. So like, the skill set that you need to use these tools is different to traditional go-to-market skills. And that, if you get the right people in, the payback is massive.
Worst go-to-market decision in the past 12 months?
I think it's probably spending lots of money on, not lots, but we spent a bit of money on social. Didn't work for us at all. That's probably the worst, the one that I regret the most.
One contrarian view on legal tech go-to-market that most of your peers would disagree with?
Remote first. Most of my peers have teams on location, in Sweden or London or San Francisco or whatever. I've built remote first companies my entire career. I built 120 people across 9 time zones with Whisk, which became Samsung Food. And then we're doing the same thing with GitLaw. We're a distributed team globally. I think you can get the best. That's how you get the best talent. It's how you get the best talent fast. It's how you and it's highly productive. In the world of AI, you need written context for the AI to understand. And in a remote working culture, you have to write everything has to be written and documented so others can also benefit from the same stuff. So it's kind of works perfectly together. AI, I think, works better when you are remote. You don't have to be remote. Obviously, you can do it in an office too and have lots of discipline about creating that kind of context. But remote first.
Yeah, I'll double click on that. It's a big topic I post a lot of content about this because I'm just constantly interviewing people, and I'm in a paradox because my business is remote first. My employees are distributed, works great for me. My customers, my 2 biggest customers, 5-day a week in the office, hardcore. If a candidate's not for that, they're the wrong person, and it's that kind of mentality. So I'm seeing even more of a divide now around this, but it's really interesting. Because there's no right or wrong, it's whatever the founder of the business's approach is and what they feel is the right way to build their business in terms of that's going to match their culture, their expectations. And I think that's the right thing. But what's good, I think, is there's opportunity for a remote first business to stand out big time and use that as a selling point to get top people. Obviously, it gives you access to top people. And at the same time, I think if you're 5 days a week in the office, some people love that. Some people absolutely, love that kind of environment. It's a different type of culture. So I don't see it as what I typically post on LinkedIn is that there's not a right or wrong here. It's down to preference. And luckily, there's lots of things at the buffet.
100%. I totally agree. And listen, I miss going to the office. I do. I miss the human contact, and I do go to London, here and there to meet my team in person, and we meet up somewhere and we do a day together, and we actually also fly together to one location every year for a week and work together as well. So I do make efforts for in person, and I do miss the regular office thing. However, when forced to be in the office 5 days a week, I really miss some of the advantages of remote. Right? So I have for me, my day is I wake up at 6:30 or earlier. Usually I start work at 6:30, and then at 7:30, I wake up my kids, I take them to school, and by 8:30 I'm back at the desk, and then at 5:30 I go and pick up my kids from school, and then I'm then occupied until 8. And then usually I'm too tired to do anything after 8, but sometimes I do some more work, right? But it's that flexibility to be able to take my kids to school and drop them off and pick them up again, drop them off and pick them up. I would not be there if I was working in an office. There's no way I could do that, right? So it's these I think I'm highly productive. I don't work less hours than others. Like, I think I probably work more than the average person, but like I'm highly productive in that time, but I'm also able to have a personal life and do things that I want to do in personal life. And it's not just kids, by the way. It's also like I go to the gym. Last night I was at the gym at, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock for an hour. Like I can fit these things around my life. And in an office environment, you actually can't do that as much. But you get the social aspect. Collaboration is better in person, 100%. I think in some cases you can move faster in person because you just get, you align faster. There's definitely advantages, 100%. It's just, it's a trade-off. And there's pros and cons, and you have to weigh them up and you choose which one you want to go with, right?
Absolutely. Final question. One piece of advice for a legal tech founder who is looking to build their first commercial team. What would you say?
I mean, just truly think about the fact, this is any commercial, or any role actually, but especially important for commercial, is think about the tools they're going to be using over the next 12 to 24 months. If you're not sure, ask AI. And ask AI what the kind of work they're going to be doing in the next 12 to 24 months. Don't take your assumptions of what they used to do 2-3 years ago. What are they going to do in the 12 to 18? Because my experience is it's substantially different. It's different work. It's different skills. It's a different way of working. You need to be much more technical. You need to be, you need to be, technical, fast executor, make decisions quickly, because AI is throwing stuff at you, and you have to you're basically making decisions to like go or stop, edit. And it's very people who are comfortable in, Mac terminal or in, Claude code or in using, know what an MCP is and have used one. Not that MCP is the best way of connecting things anyway, but that's the kind of thing you want people to understand. Ideally, someone who's like vibe coded something themselves in their own time because they enjoy it. Like someone who's really into AI, I would hire, without a heartbeat into my company, because I want people who really kind of like, and obviously are self-driven and all those other things that you look for in every role. And it matters more if you're remote, like self-driven and all that stuff matters so much in remote. But AI is the new thing, and I think people under-index on that still. And I think if you're someone looking for work, it's kind of obvious from that answer, right, what you should be doing, but you should be leaning heavily into that. And if you lean heavily into that, I think you become highly employable. And if you don't, I think you become you stagnate quickly and you're going to really struggle.
Yeah. Well, Nick, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today. We'll all be rooting for GitLaw, looking forward to following the journey you go on, and really appreciate you being a part of taking legal tech to market.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.